Let's get into the predicted lineup for Thursday's game against Brighton. We'll just take a look at the injury graphic one more time just to get it all confirmed who and who isn't available for this game. So Ange did confirm in his press conference that Romero has suffered a blow and will be out between 4 and 5 weeks. So he is not available for this game. That follows on for long-term injuries to Solomon, Perisic, Sessegnon, Maddison, and Bentancur, who all remain injured. Basuma is suspended and then he goes off to the AFCON, so he's not available. But more positive news, Mickey van der Ven should be available from mid-January, hopefully for the Man United game, Ange is saying. So that's really positive news, but he's still unavailable for the game against Brighton. So not great news going into this game on the injury front, but in terms of predicted lineup, we are going to go obviously in goal, Vicario, and we had a discussion yesterday on the channel. Is Vicario currently the form keeper in the Premier League at the moment? And do you think he is?
He's on outstanding form. He hasn't really put a foot wrong other than that bizarre going with his hands for the pass back against West Ham. That's the only...
I said that. I thought he should have gone with his feet easily. I'm not sure what happened.
The reason why I was surprised is because he'd done such an incredible job against, well, in all the games, but especially against Chelsea, going for those 50-50s with his feet as the sweeper keeper. I think he just had a bit of a brain fuzz and went with his hand, because also if he just... would have been, if they hadn't scored, it would have been a free kick, because you're not allowed to go with your hands for a pass back.
That's true.
So it was a real brain fuzz, and if he'd gone with his feet, he would have got there first, and James Ward-Prowse, or was it Bowen, was not going to go into a 50-50 with him. But anyway, that is the only tiny neg I can find on him. I think he's had an unbelievable season. I think him and Alisson Becker are the best two keepers on form this season. Ederson is still class, but he's had a bit of a... I think Man City have all suffered from a little bit of a hangover from the treble, which is completely normal. But yeah, Vicario has been unbelievably impressive. And I have to say, I think all of the kind of recruitment and scouting over the past 2 or 3 transfer windows has been impressive in the most part. And he has been one that has really impressed me. I know a lot of people have... I just want to show how devil's advocate I like to play it. A lot of people are really laughing at Arsenal over David Raya because we got Vicario for cheaper. I know they've got him on loan, but it's a longer... it'll be
going to be like 30 million.
30 million eventually. David Raya is actually an outstanding keeper, and if he was playing for Spurs now, I think he'd be playing at a similar level to Vicario. It's just that Mikel Arteta is such a weirdo that he's brought him in when he already has a number one, that pressure that he's put on both of them is affecting both of them. But you have to say, at 17 million rather than 30 million, it's been a better deal for Spurs to get Vicario. He's 26, coming into his prime as a keeper. Lots of talk in Italy about him potentially superseding Donnarumma as Italy's number one, which would add to him another layer of confidence. So long may it continue. He also just seems like such a humble, lovely bloke. Love him.
Bit eccentric as well. He likes to pull faces in the ground. Yeah,
he's a goalkeeper. It comes with the territory.
Absolutely correct. Next up, the right back, Pedro Porro. We're going to go with who's going to start there. Obviously, I think he's been one of the most consistent players for Spurs this season. I think, especially with Romero out, probably we'll go into who's going to play centre back in a bit. But with Romero not playing, that ability and build-up is going to be restricted. I think it puts a bit more pressure or responsibility on Porro when we are building up the game. But for you, there are a lot of question marks going into the season on Porro, but he's been so consistent, hasn't he? Very impressive. One of our most improved players.
Yeah, totally. And actually, I think some of the stuff we saw in his kind of 6-month cameo for Spurs last season after he signed, we haven't seen as much of this season, by which I mean he scored a couple of great goals. Do you remember the
Man United,
Southampton away, Man United, amazing finisher. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a bit more of that in the second half of the season as well. But maybe that hasn't been seen because he's really clued up on trying to get himself better slightly defensively when he's gone in behind. One thing I would say is, how scared were you in that kind of last, 2-3 minutes of the game in the last game when suddenly they just played the ball over the top into our right back area and he was nowhere to be found? I was just like, I think that was where I got most frustrated and banged the table. It was like, set back, but that's Ange ball. That's what he wants from him. He doesn't want to be sitting back even in the last 10 minutes of games, and that suits Porro. And he is more valuable to us in that inverted central midfield role than he is as an out-and-out right back. I
would also go on to say it probably doesn't help when Porro's quite out of position, Dyer is the one running back, if you know what I mean. You probably want someone with a bit more pace to cover that position. Next to Porro, right centre-back, we're going to go with Emerson Royale. Obviously, Romero is injured and isn't available for the game. He's going to be a massive miss. Emerson has played this role now a few games this season, and I would say probably more negative than positive, but he has, I remember that second half against Man City, he played very well, albeit the first half not so well. Against Aston Villa, probably a bit of a mixed game, some good, some bad moments. I thought had a pretty good game against Everton, actually, at left back. I was actually pretty happy with him.
He was far superior at left back against Everton than he had been against Burnley away, that's for sure.
Yeah, so he does come in at centre back. He's got a good job on his hands against a very attacking Brighton team, but we went with him over Dyer just because of his physical attributes, I guess.
I think so, and also that we're basing it, I think, a bit on the fact that he came in when Dyer was available a few games ago. So it seems to me that he's a bit higher up on in Ange's kind of list. Yeah, as I think I've mentioned before, I do worry about him getting the ball stuck under his feet. I don't feel confident with him when he puts his foot on the ball like that, similar to the goal that was disallowed in the game against Everton. But hopefully getting the ball off Vicario and having the kind of picture in front of him means he'll be able to find easier balls and be a bit braver on the ball. The difference, though, between him, the main difference on the ball is Romero is so confident, brave on the ball. Not only is he willing to kind of run it into midfield sometimes, but he puts pace on his passes into those midfielders. And because Royal isn't as brave on the ball is a bit more tentative, and that puts the midfielders into more trouble as well. They're unable to take it on the half turn, and they've got more time to think about it and more time to be pressed. So that's the worry. But I think Royal, he will start ahead of Dyer, but it wouldn't be a huge surprise to me if Dyer got the nod, but I don't think so.
I mean, they haven't been considered so far, but, Dorrington, Phillips, they always get talked about. I know Phillips is back available for this game as well. Is there any kind of thought that maybe he could throw them in?
Just on the basis that he hasn't given them any minutes so far, I don't think so. I know a lot of the fan base are begging for Phillips or Dorrington to play ahead of Dyer, for instance. My personal take on these things is that we don't see them on the training ground every day. Big Ange does. I don't think I've seen many Spurs fans who have doubted a lot of what Big Ange has done this season, and therefore I'm not sure we should doubt him having seen them every day on the training ground. I mean, Ashley Phillips went away with the England unders. I can't remember what it is, the under 18s or 19s or whatever. He was on the bench for them. So it's not like he's, by far the best in his age group. It's that we've seen some potential in him, and we've put an outlay of a few £1 million there, and we're hoping for him to grow within the academy setup and whilst training with the first team. So I'd be very surprised in a difficult away game against a team that moved the ball around really well, whether we're going to throw one of those youngsters into centre half. I mean, about Dorrington, I've not seen him play. I've seen some clips on YouTube and social media. That does not make a centre half as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to go with Big Ange and trust that if he plays Emerson Royal there, it's because he thinks he's the best man for the job.
Well, partnering Emerson Royal, we're going to go with Ben Davies, who's obviously been a fixture in the side now ever since Vicky van de Ven got injured against Chelsea. And to be fair, he's had some really, really positive performances. I think he's really performed better than most people would have expected in that position. Seems to be growing into that position as well. I think when it comes to playing out the back, his passing ability, definitely underrated. I think he does nice crisp passes, and when he does a nice floater pass as well, they're usually quite accurate. Right. Where I do worry about him a bit is I feel like against Watkins and against Calvert-Lewin, there were times during those games he was bullied a bit and he struggled physically. We know he's not the tallest, but against a little strike, not a little striker, but against a striker like João Pedro is a bit more technical than maybe physical. Hopefully he should be able to cope with that.
Yeah, although you saying that just makes me wonder whether De Zerbi might look at that and bring Ferguson in and try and give it a physical battle. I don't know. Ferguson's obviously a talent, but there must be a reason. I mean, Pedro's been playing well. There must be a reason he's starting. I've been very impressed with Ben Davies. Like I said, I think he has played his way into a long-term squad role within Big Ange's team. Not a single of our managers over the last near 10 years that Ben Davies has played for Tottenham Hotspur has said anything but brilliant things about Ben Davies. He always gives 100% for the shirt. He will never claim to be the most talented defender or player in the team, but he's an incredibly intelligent footballer. He reminds me a bit of Gary Neville. He's a worker bee. Like he puts it in. He works every day in training. He's a better player now than he was when he joined. And he is proving for the first time in his Spurs career that he can play in a back four. Like he played a lot for Wales on the left as a back three, and for us under Conte on the left of a back three, and he did fine. But now he's proving that he can be the centre half on the left of a centre back pairing in a back four, and that is incredible. Now, am I saying that he won't make a mistake at some point? He probably will. He's not a natural centre half, but we have to look at these players more as in, do they give 100% for Tottenham Hotspur? Yes, they do. And if they do, we all make mistakes. Tell me a day in your office where you haven't made a mistake. They're all going to make mistakes. Sometimes it's unfortunate, but it's how you bounce back and how much you give for the shirt. And on that basis, Ben Davies has been an incredible signing for us, deserves a testimonial when he reaches his 10 years.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think he's... like ever since he's come to Spurs, he's given absolutely everything. He's been very loyal. He's been always, when called upon, gives his all and never complained any second. I don't think he's ever been one of those players who's kicked up a fuss as well. Always done the job whatever's required, and I think he's doing a fantastic job now. So I got to give him a lot of credit. And obviously he will be starting on Thursday. Left back, the return of Destiny Udogie, who obviously was suspended for the Everton game, and we did have a bit of struggle, progressing the ball. I felt down that side without. Albeit Emerson did have a good job defensively on the left-hand side, but it's going to be absolutely great to have him back, isn't it, on the left?
I think he's our star boy. I really do. I went to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the Shakhtar Donetsk game. It was the first time I'd seen him in the flesh in pre-season. Within 10 minutes, I was saying to the guys I was sat next to, who weren't even Spurs fans, they kind of came along for the jolly. I was like, that guy has got the most potential I've seen in a player at this club since, and you can talk about your Gareth Bales. Like, he's not the same kind of play, he's not as lightning quick, but in terms of for his age, the talent, the intelligence he has on the pitch, and how quickly he's taken on what Big Ange wants from him, unbelievably impressed. The only negatives we've seen from him have been like slightly disciplinary, and that is because Ange has us pressing so high that he's coming into challenges a bit late, and that's why we're getting so many bookings. I don't have a single negative to say about Destiny Udogie. We've signed him up to a new deal already. Very smart from Daniel Levy. For all the abuse that Daniel Levy gets, the reason why we struggle to sell players on is because we sign our young players up to big, long contracts when they've shown the potential. And we've got Udogie, and I think over the next 3 or 4 years, he will become our most valuable player, potentially. I love him.
Yeah, when you look at left-backs currently in the Premier League, you look at the top left-backs, I can't think of one who's performing better than Udogie right now.
The players season I like at left-back are Chilwell, obviously, is good, and Luke Shaw, I think, has come on as a player over the last few seasons. But I think Udogie has more talent than all of those players, and he's being played in a way that enables him to get to where he wants to be as well, which is making late runs into the box. Already scored his first goal for Spurs. I agree with you. I think it would not surprise me at all if Udogie was in the Premier League Team of the Year. If he stays fit this whole season, if he is the left back in the Premier League Team of the Year.
Yeah, and still only 20 years of age. Incredible to think about. In the number 6 position in central midfield, we are going to go with Ollie Skipp to keep his place. Obviously, he got his second start of the season, wasn't it, against Everton after starting the first game of the season. I thought he performed fairly well. I thought he was a lot more controlled than he has been in maybe his previous appearances. I thought he looked a lot more comfortable for himself in that position. I still think there are definitely things to improve on for himself being in that position consistently, but it's easy to forget is only his second start of the season in the Premier League. So obviously it's going to take some time to get back in his rhythm. But with Højbjerg probably looking on his way out, I'm guessing that was probably part of the decision-making when it came to picking Ollie Skipp on Saturday. So we're going to go with him on Thursday as well.
Yeah, I think he needs a run of games. I think it helps that Højbjerg has only really looked good. He's not looked bad, but he's looked best when he's come on to kind of change the game slightly and shore something up or change the way that we're playing against an opposition press. So I think Skipp will just about get the nod. It's not guaranteed. You don't know what's been happening in training, but I said it earlier, he needs a run of games. He needs to get into that rhythm. I've said it many times. I've got lots of friends who are Norwich fans. They say he's the most talented player they've had at Norwich for years and years and years. He's got the talent. I don't think he has the confidence at the moment. He needs something to happen to him to get that confidence level up to where his talent is. Don't forget, I think Marlon said it the other day on the watch along, don't forget what those Dutch players said when they played against him in the England under-21s. He's a Dutch-esque player. He can take the ball on the half turn. He sees an easy ball and he can get it back. He's got a good engine. It's all there for Ollie Skipp, but he's not been playing enough games. And you mentioned it earlier. This is a vital period of time for him to prove whether he has a long-term place in this Ange ball philosophy. If he gets a good run of games and we get a few wins over the next month or so, then I can see him really staying at Spurs. But if it hadn't been for those injuries and he was still on the bench, it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd got a kind of lower Premier League loan move in this January to try and get those games under his belt.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a crucial period for Ollie Skipp, and I'm hoping for the best for him because I really do believe in his talent. And, there are a lot of people when he was breaking to the team, Mourinho, and I think it was Conte as well, were talking.
Poch loved him. Poch loved him even at 18, yeah.
They were talking about him as a future captain, weren't they? They were saying this guy has got all the minerals to really go a long way in this game, but injuries have really held him back, haven't they? And he's been stunted a bit, losing his place. But hopefully this period can really give him a bit of a rebirth. In the right side of number 8 position, we're going to go Pape Matar Sarr. I think he's obviously, we've seen the difference he's made since he's come back into the team with that energy he provides. A lot of people call him like the most underappreciated in terms of how important he is to the team. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm guilty of that. I didn't know how much he improved our team until he was out of the team for those games. So I'm not going to say too much about Pape Matar Sarr that I haven't said already about his likeness to Vieira, how impressed with him I've been, his engine, his back and forth, the fact that he plays with a smile on his face. He's got on the end of that goal against Man United. He used to score some long-range crackers when he was in the French league, but now it seems like his technique's dropped off a cliff a bit because he seems to always sky it. But
at
some point, he's going to stick one in the top bin. Long may it be tomorrow night, as far as I'm concerned. But he's a vital cog. We're going to miss him when he goes to the African Nations Cup. Let's get the most out of him before then. I really love him in that 8 role. Ange loves him too.
Yeah, and I think he's doing a brilliant job. Next to him in the left number 8/number 10, we're going with Dejan Kulusevski, who's found a new home in that position, it seems, in recent weeks. Has really brought a new element to his game playing there. I've always personally, I know a lot of people have complained about him on the wing. I've actually never minded him there. I thought he's actually pretty good there still. But I do have to concede, since he's moving to the centre, he has kind of brought an extra element to the game. I do think maybe having more options to pass to, having people closer to him as well, being able to use his physicality in the central position as well has really helped him. And I think it's been a joy to watch in that central position, hasn't he?
I love him in there, and he's saved us. With Maddison having gone off injured for so long, he's absolutely saved us, kind of showing us what we can do, because Lo Celso obviously can't string a run of games together without getting an injury either. He's less transparent when he plays in the middle. I like him out the wing too. I think he's very dangerous. That goal he set up for Richarlison at Forest shows his crossing is elite when he's on his game. But he's just less transparent. And as I said, players bounce off him. He can take it back to goal, comes into him. He's got good touch, and players bounce off him because he's so strong. He's got good low center of gravity, and he can go either way. He said it off in a post-match interview, like his right-hand side is stronger than people give him credit for. He scored a couple of goals with his right this season already. And just the fact that he's not hugging the right-hand touchline means defenders, when they're playing against him with his back to goal, they don't know which way he's going to go. And he reminds me of Eriksen in terms of his kind of killer slide rule balls that he can play in between the lines, in between the back line, getting our wingers in. So I love him in there. It'll get him in there ahead of Lo Celso. But when Sarr goes to the African Nations Cup, it'll be interesting to see whether he finds a way to play both Lo Celso and Kulusevski in those 8 and 10 roles, because the only time that I remember, and you said it earlier, the only time I remember that happening this season, we've looked incredibly open when the opposition has got the ball. But yeah, Kulusevski in the 8 or that kind of 10 role, as you said, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's in sparkling form at the moment. On the right-hand side, we've got to go with Brennan Johnson. Obviously, got 2 assists against Everton last time out. I really thought that first one as well, when he got to the byline, brilliant ball across the face to the near post, to Richarlison, who scored. That was like a real staple of what Ange wants from his wingers, getting into those positions as quickly as possible, delivering with quality, and giving the striker the best chance to get a cutback. And I thought we did that brilliantly. I think Johnson has had a good start to his Spurs career. He's very young. He obviously came after pre-season ended as well. He's had a few injuries to contend with, but what I like about him is he seems to be involved in every game. He rarely seems to be kind of anonymous and not involved in the play. He does seem to either be getting chances, getting shots on goal, getting to the byline and taking on his fullback, even if maybe the chances don't go in or the shots or crosses lack a bit of quality. He doesn't seem to shy away from the ball. He always seems to be looking at it, looking for it, taking on his man. I do think he looks a lot better on the right-hand side, though. So that's another thing which I think we get the benefit from when we do move Kulusevski to the centre, is we get to see Johnson back on the right-hand side.
You literally took the words right out of my mouth. Everything you've said I agree with, but I was going to add in, he's clearly much more comfortable on the right-hand side. And that goal you mentioned of setting up for Richarlison in the last game is exactly right. He got a bit of space, he looked up and he saw the run, and he didn't try and overhit the cross. He just kind of almost just put enough on it for it to get there, but enough pace on it also for Richarlison not to have to put too much on it himself. that showed a player in confidence with his position on the pitch, confidence with his ability to get the right ball in, and I've been very impressed by him. There's a lot more to come when it comes to Brennan Johnson. Forest fans loved him. I think it was worth the outlay based on the fact that he's a homegrown player. You have to add that homegrown tax, English player tax. Oh, he's Welsh player, sorry, British player tax. And yeah, I think he will, over the next couple of years, really show to have been a great signing. And we need to keep him fit because we don't have a lot of fit players. And as you said, as we've talked about a lot, in the next month in January, we're going to be without some key players. So Johnson's going to become even more important.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if at any point in January he maybe even takes up a central role at some points because he has been known to play that.
He's played false nine, I think, for Forest.
Yeah, he's played up front a few times. That's the only thing maybe that's been missing. I know it's only a few months into his time at Spurs, but obviously he was more of a goal scorer, wasn't he, at Forest? And at Spurs he's been maybe a bit more of a providing role. I think he's got 4 assists and 1 goal, but we definitely know he's got that ability to put the ball in the back of the net. He's got a good finishing ability. We saw that at Forest, so definitely need to get more out of that so far for Spurs. Up front in the number 9 position, we are sticking with Richarlison, who's obviously got 4 goals in 3 games. One of the form strikers in the league over the last few games, which is brilliant to think about. He has looked like a new player, hasn't he? Since he come back from that surgery, his movement looks a lot freer. He seems to be a lot more energetic. He seems to be being a lot more of a nuisance for centre-backs. And obviously he's found his scoring touch again, hasn't he? It's been really great to see. Yeah,
most importantly, he's found his scoring touch. But the thing is, he's never, ever stopped pressing. Like even when, it's interesting about the surgery. I think it's probably true that injury was niggling him a bit. But what I would also say is, I don't think Ange would have played him so much if it had been a terrible injury, something he couldn't have played through. So what I think maybe might have happened, this is me theorizing again, but maybe Richarlison just needed a clean slate. He needed something where he was able to say, okay, it's not just anymore about me having joined Spurs for £60 million and not having had a good start. Now I'm able to say, well, this is a line in the sand. I've had surgery. I now don't have any excuse, right? There's nothing I can excuse it on. And he's started scoring ever since. And as I've said, all the way along the line, my Everton fan friends and family have always said he's a terrific player. I've watched enough of him to know that he's a great finisher. He's got more finishes in his locker than we've seen yet. He's much better than we've seen. And I think if we keep making him the chances now that he's got on this run, I think it'll continue. He's the right man to be playing number 9 at the moment, and we're going to need him more than ever when Sonny goes to the Asian Cup, because he's not only going to have to take over the goal-scoring responsibility even more than he is at the moment, but he has to take over the responsibility as a leader within the team, a senior player. Yeah. Sometimes when you go to a new team, at Everton, he was the big man. He was the main man. At Watford, he was the main man. At Spurs, he comes into a team where Kane is there, Son is there. He can maybe shrink a little bit, not have to take that responsibility. Over the course of January, he has to take the responsibility as a leader. And we need to see that both in terms of his goal scoring and how he brings his other teams into the game and gives them confidence and an ability to get these important results.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note as well the type of goals he's been scoring, a real kind of finishes and goal score poachers goals, which we've really been missing, haven't we, this whole season. I know Son's done a fantastic job in the 9, scored 11 Premier League goals. I'm not taking anything away from him, but that goal against Forest, the goal against Everton on the weekend, real strikers' goals, which you need a number 9 to be in there to finish. And I feel like those are the kind of goals during the season which we've had real good maybe delivery and no one really there to make the most of it. And hopefully Richarlison in this form is going to be that guy for us. On the left-hand side, we are going to finish off with Heung-min Son, who's gone back to the wing in recent weeks and looked pretty good there, to be fair. He had a bit of an uncomfortable time out on the left at the beginning of the season. He did then go back into the number 9, scoring lots of goals, but with Richarlison's return to form, it has forced Son back out wide. Had a brilliant game against Newcastle. Then I would say maybe mixed games against Forest and against Everton, is fair to say, albeit did score against Everton. Wasn't from open play, though. What do you make of Sonny back on the left? Do you think his future is there at 31?
Well, I think tomorrow night will be really interesting because I think there is a similarity between how Newcastle played against us and how Brighton will play against us, which is, as we talked about before, wanting to be on the front foot, wanting to get forward, getting the fullbacks forward. That will leave space for Sonny. And it's when he's not against a low block that he is at his most dangerous. So it would not surprise me at all if Sonny notches tomorrow. He'll get lots of chances to do what is almost trademark Sonny, which is running in from the left, cutting in and trying to put the ball in the top left-hand corner or right-hand corner, depending which way you're looking at it. I think he is much more dangerous in the games against the better clubs, the teams who play the more expansive football. But like I said earlier, he's not a player who will be able to beat a player with pace from a standing start. And therefore, against the lower blocks, your West Hams, your Nottingham Forest, Everton under Sean Dyche, obviously. He wasn't able to play his best game. But also, he's an elite finisher. And even though he scuffed that finish against Everton, he didn't, he got it on target. And that was the most important thing. That won us the game in the end. So I think he'll have a better game tomorrow night. And at the moment, while Richarlison's on form, I would keep him out left for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing about him out left, I think he can still do that role. I just think you don't make use of his best asset. And his best asset, the asset he's truly elite at, is his finishing ability and his ability in front of goal. And I just feel like when he's on the left, you just don't make the most use of that. You don't get him in enough goal-scoring possessions, especially how Ange likes to play his wingers very wide, hugging the touchline almost, just beating their fullback. Sonny, I think he can still beat his fullback, but that's not what he's truly elite at. What he's truly elite at is when he gets in front of goal, he finishes a chance or a long-range shot from the edge of the box. That's why I want to see him more centrally. But I have to agree, right now, Richarlison on a hot streak. He's playing really well. He's providing the goals. So I think Son has to be out wide at the moment.
But also don't forget, part of Ange's philosophy is also that when the winger on the right gets to the touchline and gets to the byline, he wants his wingers on the left to be coming in at the back stick as well. So Sonny will get opportunities that way as well. But, I think we should just count ourselves lucky that Richarlison is feeling confident again, because now we have, they're all elite players. Like Richarlison, he's the number 9 for Brazil, or he was for the World Cup. He's not a bad player. He's a good player. And now that he's broken what was a difficult time for him at Spurs, it's very possible he could go on to score 15 goals this season in the Premier League, and that would get us there or thereabouts in that top 4. That's for sure.
Oh, another 10 goals. Not asking for too much, but you never know. He's done it.
Heard it here first.
All right, let's run through the whole lineup one more time. So you got Vicario in goal, Porro right back, Doggy left back, Davis and Roy out at centre back, Skipp, Sarr and Kulusevski in the centre, Johnson, Son supporting Richarlison up top. Barnaby has gone for 3-2. I have gone for 2-2 in this game, unfortunately. That is our predictions.